Thank you everyone for saying yes to today. Thank you for everyone who helped put the event together as well. Very excited to share my work. I wrote a book called Worth the Fight, Acting for a Better World, A Guide to Spirituality, Psychedelic Medicines, and Overcoming Trauma. I've been, since 2017, advocating for our United States war veterans amid a mental health crisis and suicide epidemic. I'm donating all the profits of my book to veteran non-for-profits to facilitate psychedelic healing in our war veterans. And yeah, I'm just really grateful to be here and to share my learnings and experiences that I've come across these last many years with all of you. There's going to be a lot of overlap on some of the topics. Michelle did a wonderful job presenting a kind of a broad view of psychedelics, the psychedelic renaissance, where things are at, where things are headed. I'm a big optimist that even during these precarious times, that these medicines are coming online at the perfect time to confront these precarious times that we're in. To start off, I have a quote that is from Michael Pollan that I thought would be relevant to today's group. I've begun to wonder if perhaps these remarkable molecules might be wasted on the young, that they may have more to offer us later in life after the cement of our mental habits and everyday behaviors has set. Carl Jung once wrote that it is not the young, but people in middle age who need to have an experience of the numinous to help them negotiate the second half of their lives. That was from Michael Pollan's How to Change Your Mind. I would imagine many of you have read that and have been pollinated by Michael Pollan. And I would imagine some others of you might be wondering, well, I'm in the same space as Michael Pollan, having written a book. He's got 8 New York Times bestsellers, and you're like, who the heck is this Matt Simpson guy? So, but again, grateful to be here and to share. There's overlap in my work and Michael Pollan's work, but I do take a focus and shine a light on an area that he didn't really go near the veterans. And I even saw him speak in Chicago. And I was shocked to not even hear the word veteran in the hour-and-a-half presentation. Still a big fan of his work, and I think that How to Change Your Mind is the most important psychedelic book probably ever written. The format, with us having an intimate group here, I've got my presentation broken into 3 parts. I'm going to talk about integration in depth, to kind of do a deep dive around integration. I fancy my book, Worth the Fight, as a 308-page psychedelic integration program, so we can get the most, empowering my readers to get the most out of the psychedelic experience, to be healthy, happy, and strong, and to do the work that they're here to do. So we're going to talk about integration. We're going to talk about flow. The flow state has been something that I've been nearly obsessed with, is understanding the optimal state of consciousness that I think that these psychedelic medicines put us in, and understanding the potential as flow, I believe, is the key to unlock our fullest potential. And there's a lot of overlap with psychedelics and meditation and flow states. And lastly, we're going to talk about love, about paying it forward, about altruism, about the potential in the hearts and minds of our war veterans amid a mental health crisis and suicide epidemic. I think that they are the ones that can lead us through these challenging times and lead us to global peace. Even with what's going on in the world and these challenging times with Ukraine and Russia, I believe in my heart of hearts that that's where this movement is ultimately leading in the next decade or two, is to see a peaceful planet. And so we're going to tie all that together. And there's, again, 3 sections, and then I'm going to open it up to interactive discussion. And let's iterate out towards this edge together. Does that sound good? Okay, cool, awesome. A little bit about me. Again, my name is Matt Simpson. Grew up in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. I feel like, as a Wisconsinite, there's a lot of similarities to Michigan. When I was in high school and my early college years, expressing any emotions in the Midwest, here's a 12-pack. Go deal with it. Handle it. and I know that that's consistent here in Michigan as well, and probably Illinois and Ohio, and that's just what you do. And for me, I did the whole corporate America thing. I was 22, 23 when I moved down to Chicago to join the rat race and to make my way in this world. I followed all the rules for, I don't know, it was 30, I was 34 when I had my first psilocybin experience. I was out on my friend Terry's boat, and it felt like a safe experience, and we had a handful of mushrooms, and it was a beautiful, beautiful experience. But for me, I had followed all the rules, and the more that I attained, and the more that I achieved our societal definition of success, the more miserable and sick I became. So I got very curious about that, and then had that psilocybin experience, which ultimately led me to deepening into a meditation practice, and then things started to happen on almost an accelerated time frame. And it was October 16th, 2014, which was my 35th birthday. I had sold a business that I'd been working on for the 8 years prior. And while I was supposed to be out like hooting and hollering with the new brass, the new business folks, all I could think about was this path that I'm on right now. And how do I pay this forward? How do I share this knowledge? How do I, in a time of prohibition when you can't speak up about these things, and it was even more taboo back in 2014, 2015. The Johns Hopkins studies had just started, but there wasn't, all these books that had come out. Michael Pollan made a big splash, Stealing Fire in 2017 as well. Ayelet Waldman's A Really Good Day. And for me, it was and immediately selling my business. All I could think about was, again, paying it forward, but how do I go deeper into this experience? So 2 months later, I was down in the jungles of Costa Rica with a profound healing with ayahuasca. And that was essentially the beginning of 2015. I liken it to 10 to 20 years of therapy in a weekend. 90% of my anger, 90% of my rage, 90% of my depression, 90% of my addictive impulses gone. And it was a deep cathartic release. I was able to be in a safe place to confront the childhood sexual trauma in my nervous system, and to let it go, to process it, to feel all these emotions in this supported environment. There's a lot of talk and buzz around ayahuasca, and after the experience, people are, big smiles on their face, and there's a lot of positive energy. A big part of the experience is finding the right place, the space holders, because I think that the medicines are all powerful in their own way, but then with what makes ayahuasca even that much more powerful is the fact that there's a ritualized container, and it is built for people to go within in a safe setting to address whatever might be at the root for disease, depression, anxiety, low energy levels, whatever it may be. So that's a little bit about my background, and that ultimately led me, I had just a clear vision forward of the path ahead. I was in the business world in a codependent, toxic relationship, and I could see through my own eyes a way out. That I had to implement a meditation practice, a yoga practice, tighten up my diet, yada, yada, yada. And then it was December 9th where I walked away from my corporate career almost a year after my first ayahuasca experience. I traveled with a backpack for 18 months. I did the whole free spirit thing, trying to figure out where I best fit in, and spent a lot of time in Central and South America. My brother lives in Switzerland, so I did the Euro 90-day kind of bouncing around from city to city. And it was month 17 of an 18-month travel journey where I came across an organization called Veterans for Entheogenic Therapy. There's a couple others that have the acronyms. There's VETS that is active and live now. And this veteran organization pulled me in. Again, I was in month 17 of an 18-month travel journey. The whole intention of the travel journey was to figure out where I best fit in for the next 50, 60 years of my life, and how I can best utilize and serve my gift and offering, and to share my gifts with our human family. And I came across this veteran organization. They had 150 veterans through the program at that point, and as an adult survivor of childhood sexual trauma, it was this number that was staggering, that pulled me in, was that 90% of our veterans, it wasn't the arm that was missing, it wasn't the foot that was blown off in war, it wasn't losing a buddy in war. Time and time again, the childhood sexual trauma in the early years of childhood development, or some severe trauma that appears to be at root, and it appears to be driving them to go to war in the first place. So this was very captivating for me, and it just, I must have asked myself in front of the mirror and just in meditation and contemplation where I can best serve thousands of times while I was traveling and doing the free spirit thing. And it just hit me. I was on the floor I was doing like yoga poses, or in Grass Valley, and I remembered, like, it hit me like a lightning bolt. Like, oh shit! Like, this is my work. This is what I'm here to do. And since then, I've been advocating for our veterans, helping them get this psychedelic therapy, that plant medicine therapy, so they can heal. They can push this edge, and if they can heal and get right, that sends a powerful signal to all of us to help reframe maybe some of our challenges. So that's a little bit about me, to set some context for the rest of the presentation here. I want to dive right into the first talking point, which will be around integration. Again, I fancy Worth the Fight as a 308-page integration program. This quote is striking and sums up my viewpoint on integration. This is a quote from Kelly Brogan, MD. Integration is the highest form of spirituality, in my estimation, simply because it requires a truce with all that you'd rather split off, deny, and repress. And, integration, it means to make whole. So we have these deep, powerful, transcendent experiences. We have these visionary experiences. And even when I was out, deep in the medicine back in 2014 to 2018, they talked about integration, but because the peak experience is so sensational, it's so sexy and so like wildly, it's ineffable. It's such a deep experience that it's almost like the integration talk. The mundane and doing the work in the day-to-day, that went in one ear, out the other. And it was troubling to see so many people that were not integrating. And I could see objectively, like, whoa, this is kind of dangerous. They're going back to the medicine, and they're not applying any of the insights. And which is cool. Like, people want to do what they want to do. But if they're continually whining about the same stuff, then it's like, well, like, aren't you dealing with that in ceremony? Like, and aren't you like, do you have some way to integrate that in your? Do you have a meditation practice? Do you have a journaling practice? Are you moving your body? Are you exercising? So I know all of you didn't come out here to talk about meditation and journaling and mindfulness and exercise. Something that has been so, this last year I've done a deep dive around microdosing and taking a different approach, not just microdosing, but intentional microdosing. There's a big difference, and we're going to go in depth to the microdosing. I host a Psychedelics and Limitless Personal Growth meetup. It's Chicago-based, and we got over 1,200 members, and I've been doing that on a weekly basis, hosting these Microdose Monday calls, and that has really helped my understanding of the potential in microdosing, and I feel like that could be a bridge for people to come onto this path safely. And the story around microdosing is a relatively young story, but I view it as a supreme integration strategy. So the power in microdosing is that it allows us to adopt a meditation practice. It allows us to bravely put pen to paper and to journal. It inspires us to maybe go on those nature walks or spend some time out in nature. It, as Dr. Fadiman says, it encourages us to have an extra few reps at the gym. So we're pushing our edge a little bit more, but because it's local, there's no disassociation like we have with the peak experience. I feel that when we have an intentional practice, again, committing to the journey of 4 weeks, 6 weeks, 8 weeks, I'm gonna microdose. There's the Fadiman protocol, which is we dose on day 1, day 4, day 7, day 10, day 13, and so on. But we make this commitment for a month or 6 weeks or 8 weeks, and we approach it like a discipline. And we do our very best to stay within the protocol. The citizen science that Dr. Fadiman shares is astounding. He's got over 3,000 reports from 51 countries, and these are self-reported instances. But I just saw a meta-study the other day that showed that half of those that microdose either completely reduce or completely eliminate their pharmaceutical intake or reduce significantly. That's a huge number, and that's something that I'm seeing as well, that the microdosing can help people get off of their pharmaceuticals. It's as if, and I've been hosting these this magic and microdosing, a group microdosing experience where we bring community together, we set some bold intentions on the front end, and we support each other along the journey. And it's gut-wrenching, and it breaks my heart, the struggle that some people have to get off of their pharmaceuticals. And it's just, I think that people would take a different approach towards holistic health if the medical establishment were more upfront about the difficulties, that maybe people would be more serious about exercising, getting outside, eating their fruits and veggies, getting normal sleep, reducing consumption of alcohol or cannabis, whatever it might be. All those things come into play with the microdosing, and again, it's astounding to see the results. There's a lot of talk around the microdosing and the placebo effect. There's not much we know about mind-body medicine and the power, and what is the mechanism and how it works. Intention has been mentioned so much through Michelle's talk, and it's becoming buzzier and buzzier and more. We're talking about it more and more. Like, well, how do we quantify the power of intention? There's a lot of people that don't take time to be intentional throughout their day. They're just always on the move, kind of, so to take time, take a few conscious breaths, like, what value is that? Like, where is the value in that? The most exciting thing about the microdosing, and first, and I know Michelle, she talked about, what it is. Essentially, it's a subperceptual experience. We're taking a microdose, 5 to 10%, so or 10th to 20th. I even recommend my clients to start even smaller, because we can always build up. We start slow and we build up. Like they say in Stealing Fire, one of the best psychedelic books, it's better to start slow than to skid out and turn one. So we can always build up, we can always ramp up, and taking the, or going back to the benefit, and the supreme benefit that I believe in the microdosing is the peak experience, both of which increase, as Rick Doblin talks about, the window of neuroplasticity. And essentially, neuroplasticity is changing our brain, changing our nervous system. And so it allows for change. I always say that the microdosing, it gives us 3% more courage, 3% more empathy, 3% more self-awareness, which isn't much, but over the course of time, good things can happen, and they can happen fast. We can really get some momentum, and we're bringing more into the fold. So if we have a place, and this is where those practices come into play, the meditation and the journaling and the mindfulness and some sort of movement practice. We all have 37.2 trillion cells that are all screaming at us, move, move, find a way to move the body. And so when we're doing all of those things in conjunction with microdosing, we can see that the change can happen on a more accelerated manner. And again, I view microdosing as a supreme integration strategy that can make the others more accessible. It's thought that only 15% of Americans meditate. It's really hard to do. We're busy. We're on the go. So having potentially a microdosing protocol to help us implement that practice, to help us perhaps lean into our edge with breath work. Breath work is becoming very buzzy as well in the psychedelic space. I had the privilege of training with Wim Hof back in 2016, and we'll be talking a little bit about the Wim Hof method and that value as well. And let's see here, I want to make sure that we covered everything around the microdosing. And yeah, I think that is a good segue into the Wim Hof method. This, a little bit about Wim Hof. He's a Nordic yogi, a Dutchman. He's got 20 or so Guinness Book of World Records for breath retention and endurance in extreme climates, and swimming under ice and the Arctic Circle and all sorts of just wild shit. And he's an eccentric Dutchman who talks loud, he drinks beer, and he kind of snubs his nose up to the programs around what a spiritual teacher should look like. And he's goofy, he's fun, he's lighthearted, and he's got a powerful vision of our planet with no sickness, believing that all disease, dis-ease, is a byproduct of shallow breathing. And so he's getting at the root here. I thought this was powerful to come across the etymology of the word breath, the word soul in Old English translates to vital breath. The word spiritus the root is from spiritus, the word spirit, the root is from spiritus, which is Latin for from the breath. So we're getting to the breath, and I sometimes wonder if is it the psychedelics or is it the breathing patterns that they enable us to do, as to where the benefit is coming. Because we do have, I remember when I was deep in my healing in 2015, I just had the ayahuasca experience, and I'm back in Chicago, and I have some mushrooms. and I read about this in Worth the Fight, I had 6 to 8 therapeutic kind of solo journeys where I'd take 1 gram or maybe 2 grams, and then I'd have 2 or 3 hits of some Michigan homegrown, and it was like, oh shit, I am back in the ayahuasca ceremony. Like, I had the music on, and it was eerie how I was able to get back into that state. But I remember the breathing patterns, and some of these what felt like, you would have a breath for a minute or 2 or 3, and it was just like my body just knows what to do when the thinking mind gets out of the way. And so back to the Wim Hof, a little bit about the method. I'll show you how you practice it. Essentially, we're oxygenating our blood. We take 40 deep inhales like this. Active on the in, passive on the out, and then on the last breath hold, we take a full inhale and we push everything out. And it's shocking how long we can hold once we oxidize our blood, our cells. There's science that shows that this boosts our energy at the mitochondrial level. There was also a study in 2016 where they injected an endotoxin, which essentially would make any of us, or made the control group nauseous, sick for 48 hours, kind of gnarly nausea symptoms. And WIM students that he'd only been working with for 4 days were able to suppress the immune response. They were fine. They injected the same endotoxin, and it was like, that has no hold on me. So this is a powerful method that we can bring forth during the pandemic to boost our immunity, so we can all be healthy, happy, and strong. That's WIM's message, is healthy, happy, and strong, and it also reduces inflammation and reduces pain. I'm 42 years old, and I'm absolutely smashing my fitness goals, and it's kind of exciting. And I don't really know if it's from the Wim Hof or it's from some of the other practices I do. My diet's gotten better, I sleep better. I'm not really sure, but just like Michelle had said about how inflammation doesn't have a hold on her, it doesn't have a hold on me, and that's exciting because it allows me to rethink about pushing some of the old edges that maybe I'd settled on, or maybe I'd given up on. It's just like, all right, this isn't worth it. And in addition, let's see, what I want to make sure I got all the benefits of the Wim Hof method. It reduces for like an hour and 40 minutes, ice fully submerged. He was fine. His core body temperature didn't go down. So he's showing the power of the mind, and with this breathing technique. So again, I think that this is so synergistic to the psychedelic renaissance. We can get high on our own supply. It's free. We can do this. This is a powerful daily practice that we can do in the morning. We can do in the confines of our own home, and it's something that I've done since the pandemic hit, virtually every day. I trained with Wim back in 2016, and I had to recommit to this practice. And yeah, here he is. And I had the privilege of meeting him in a time where he was still hosting retreats, and it was 60 to 70 of us, and we're in the border, the Czech and Polish border, and he drove me to the train station, and we're having a talk about like psychedelics, and it was like, and I was in a very vulnerable time in my life, so I was looking for strong masculine mentorship. And it was very helpful. It's like, well, if you're finding value and you're healing with it, then hey, that's cool, but finding out, again, seeing how these medicines would work with me moving forward. So I've took a little bit of a diversion. I had a 3-year experience where I didn't have a peak psychedelic experience. I was feeling so good. I was like, all right, the phone's not ringing. But I think this is a good place to open this up. The other integration strategies that I'll just mention, but we won't go in depth. Cacao, raw ceremonial cacao. It's got an anandamide, which is the same thing that's in sativa. It's a powerful plant medicine in its own way, but I believe that is an integration strategy. It keeps us local. The insights that we can glean, it pairs really nicely with psilocybin, and also fasting, intermittent fasting or extended fasting. I think that's a big part of that 3-year gap. I was finding so much benefit in the fasted state that was very close to a psychedelic state, but without really any of the risks. So again, it feels like a good place to open this up to any questions that you all have around integration.
Cacao, how was it that you applied that?
I would drink it like coffee. So tablespoon or 2, hot water, maybe a little dash of vanilla, stir it up.
Nibs?
Well, there's cocoa. It's my understanding that cocoa is heated or cooked cacao. Cacao is where chocolate comes from, and the cacao plant, the cacao pods grow in Central and South America and East Africa, Western Africa as well. The important thing to remember with cacao is it needs to be raw. So it's a raw food. There's essentially all of the medicinal value is still in the raw food. Like we talked about earlier, we bastardize here in the West tobacco, chocolate, like Hershey's and cigarettes. Like maybe there's 1% of the medicinal value is finally left for us to consume. So this is a completely different experience when we're having raw ceremonial cacao. And it's, again, has anandamide in it, which is tied to lateral thinking, creative thinking. For me, my most reliable way to get into a flow state is by drinking this cacao.
How's it spelled?
CACAO. And there's a wonderful resource that, and there really is nothing else like it that I've come across, called Soul Lift Cacao, and they source it from Guatemala. I call it the Guatemala Gold, and it's produced by the indigenous women, and it's it's essentially bean, basically. I don't want to say bean to bar because they're not producing chocolate bars, but this, and it's something I'm seeing down in Miami, that they have raw mochas, and this raw cacao movement is going to be, I think it's going to blow up.
Yeah, you can put it in anything.
Yeah.
I think you use like that cocoa mix for, like that baking, no bake, like cocoa, you can use that cacao for. It's just the original form. I mean, like he said, you're not going to get the benefits because you're going to cook it, but it's definitely better than, like, so anything you use that, like that, that Hershey's no bake cocoa, that bitter stuff, you can use that cacao for. That's like the original form of that no baking, that baking powder stuff.
So what's the actual difference between the raw cacao and the one you're talking about?
The raw cacao, the cocoa is when it's processed and cooked. I believe they're cooking it at 300 to 400 degrees. It's essentially cooking out all the medicinal value, a good portion of it. And again, the raw cacao, it's cacao as opposed to cocoa. You can get at the Whole Foods or any co-op, or you can go online at Soul Lift, and it's a few bucks more, but the quality is next to none. And and something I didn't mention earlier is cacao is known to be one of the strongest natural antidepressants, and again, this anandamide, which is tied to lateral thinking and creativity. It's also in sativa, so you're getting the benefit of cannabis without maybe the munchies or getting sidetracked, or again being more local, more. I don't know, as a man raised in our society, it's even with all the medicine work that I've done, it's still challenging for me to feel emotions. This is a heart opener. It opens up my heart. I get gooey, and I want to put on like Andrea Bocelli and like listen to, I don't know, I feel more, and it's a beautiful thing to do. So.
It's a superfood too, isn't it?
It's a superfood, yeah. Loaded in magnesium, antioxidants.
And would it even help you get off of sugar?
Yeah, I think it certainly wouldn't hurt.
Because that's what I've been thinking about it for, because I seem to really like sugar.
Who doesn't? It's in everything.
Yeah, so I thought maybe if I drank a cup of that at night, or whenever I
Well, it's a
want.
slight stimulant effect too.
So
it's like
not-
half of coffee in terms of its, it has theobromine instead of so it's something.
Oh, it
Can disrupt sleep a little bit. So yeah, late morning, maybe early afternoon. Yeah.
For sugar, maybe you could start trying honey or stevia or something less extreme.
Coconut sugar, perhaps
Because
too.
cacao is very bitter.
Yeah,
right?
less glycemic.
I agree, and I do use honey. That's how I bought peanut butter and honey. But I don't know. I seem to go to stuff, So I want to just try to get rid of the other junk, processed junk.
Just curious, Matt. So with you see like lion's mane and other non-psychedelic mushrooms being mixed and used along with psychedelics, right? With mushrooms, have you ever tried or heard where someone's taking like a lion's mane and adding cacao with it and making that combination? Have you done that or seen that?
This morning.
You had it this morning.
Yeah. Oh, not with the psilocybin. I didn't do the microdose today, but
No, not the psychedelic mushrooms, just non-psychedelic mushrooms.
Yeah,
And
functional
mixing
mushrooms
those.
and cacao play extremely nice together.
Yeah.
Absolutely,
I
yeah.
got that mud water.
I have a question about your fasting.
Mhm.
How long?
I've adopted an intermittent fasting practice that's very buzzy in our society right now. 8 hours feeding window where I have calories, 16 hours where I fast. That was something that worked for me for a long time. Of late, I just don't have food on Sundays. And that's something that I do.
Just once a week? Then?
1 day a week, yeah, just water.
Drink? Oh,
Just lots of water, maybe some lemon, and yeah, 1 day a week, a little bit of a kind of a water fast / tech fast where I won't be on social media, I'm not messing around on my phone, just trying to be a human being for a day.
For Sunday?
Yeah, for 1 day. But the extended fast, I read about in Worth the Fight. I did have a 10-day water fast. I was in the mountains in Colorado, and that was a big part of my integration process in helping to understand the psychedelic experience after some deep healing with ayahuasca. So I do encourage that. Of course, we want to check with our doctors to see if fasting is right for us. But there is an enormous benefit, and the insights can be pretty close to psychedelia. They're not quite the same, but again, the risk is very low relative to a peak psychedelic experience. So,
and then just real quick, you said Master Network Builders, and you said somebody?
Paul Stamets, and there's a documentary called Fantastic Fungi.
Yeah, he's the guy that talked about the mushroom,
Yeah.
mycelium network underground.
You got it, yeah.
Yeah.
The whole forest.
Do you know how to spell his name?
Paul Stamets, Stamets.
Okay, and what was the title?
Fantastic Fungi documentary.
Yeah, it's on Netflix.
Yeah.
Oh,
It's really,
okay.
it's really good. It's also a book. You can get the book from the library.
Thank you.
Can you say a little bit about your meditation practice?
Sure thing. Yeah, meditation has been huge to me. The first experiences I had, the first peak experiences, inspired that. The psilocybin, and then the ayahuasca vision was very clear. Like, hey, this is if you're gonna be seeking more and to do the work that you're here to do, you're going to have to adopt a really strong practice. So, and I remember there was day 30, day 35 that I, after being back from Costa Rica, and I pushed through the resistance, and it was the most beautiful moment of grace, thinking like, oh shit, like this is a habit now. This is something that I'm going to do the rest of my life. If it were taken away from me, I would be pissed. And whereas the 10 days prior was really challenging. My mind was very stormy, very, it was, my ego chirping at me, But yeah, for me right now, I meditate a half an hour in the morning after I do the Wim Hof breathing, and I make time for active meditations after lunch, and then I usually try to get in a 20-minute meditation at night.
I got one question for you, that I wanted to ask you. You said it, like when you were doing the yoga thing, and then you came up with like how you were going to get in with the veterans. Like, how did that even come up into your head? How did you go from like how did you even get to the point of where you wanted to help the veterans? Was it because of the sexual thing from and then the past? Is that what kind of triggered you to want to work with them in that framework?
That was a big part of that. But the vision came from, or the clarity I think came from committing to these integration practices and really diving in and doing the work in the day-to-day, and again, month 17 of an 18-month travel journey, it became abundantly clear, like, oh shit, this is the work that I'm here to do.
How did the veteran part come in?
I went to Psychedelic Science in Oakland in 2017, and I came across this veteran organization, and I was shocked that how was I cut off from the veteran work? How is this veteran suicide tragedy and epidemic, how am I just finding out about it now? And so I got very curious around it. It's like, whoa, these brave men and women are the ones that are going to lead us into this unknown. And we're going to talk, on the last talking point, I get in the book, I get in really hard about Bullshit Incorporated and about how veterans are the ones that are going to break down Bullshit Inc. And
answer real quick, your meditation, is it a certain one that you like, or you just do your own?
I did a bunch of meditations, and then eventually I gravitated towards a letting go meditation. I encourage people to keep trying meditation until they find one that works for them. For me, this is the only meditation I do. In the silence of my own mind, I'll close my eyes. I am letting go. I am letting go. And I do that for 30 minutes. And
just those words?
Yeah, I am on the out breath, letting go on the out breath. And when I find myself wandering or in a thought or emotion, I just come back to the breath without judgment, and back to the mantra. And I do a journaling session afterwards, because I find that whatever keeps coming up, that's on my heart, that needs to be acted upon. There typically is a really nice things to do list that can come after a meditation practice. And I'd say 80% of the insights that have inspired my book, my podcast, my healing journey, and my thriving empowerment coaching business have come from meditation. And having that, again, that place, that landing zone for our thoughts to go, that trusted journal. My pleasure. My pleasure. We're going to move on to the next talking point, which is flow. I believe that flow is the key to unlocking our fullest human potential. There's a power quote from the book The Rise of Superman by Stephen Kotler. I want to read this and make sure I get it right for all you. How much do we really know about true happiness, burning creativity, unbridled ecstasy? As children, we are taught not to play with fire, not how to play with fire. On the flow path, we are drawn forward by fire, by powerful hedonic instincts, by our deep need for autonomy, mastery, and purpose deeply fulfilled, by dizzyingly feel-good neurochemistry, by a spectrum of joy beyond common ken, by the undeniable presence of our most authentic selves, by a cognitive imperative to make meaning of experience, by the search engine that is evolution and its need for innovation, and by the simplest of truths. Life is long and we're all scared, and in flow, at least for a little while, we're not. Again, the flow experience, I had played sports growing up, played basketball and golf, and maybe I got into some micro flow states. But to be in that ayahuasca journey in Costa Rica, late 2014, early 2015, to be in this position where, to feel this macro flow, where my prefrontal cortex goes completely offline and I can actually feel peace. And feel this beyond love that I write about and talk about in Worth the Fight. It was the most beautiful experience in my life, and I've been working backwards to how do I bring more flow into my life? How do I bring more of that experience into the day-to-day? And that has been a big quest of mine. Some of you might be wondering, well, what is flow? The researchers would say it's our optimal state of consciousness when we feel and perform our best. It's when action and awareness merge. There is a lot of ultra compelling research around flow. There was a McKinsey study that showed that executives in flow are 500% more productive than executives out of flow. The military trained snipers and radio operators in a flow state, and they learn twice as fast. There was a flow research collective study that showed that, and James Fadiman's work in the Psychedelic Explorer's Guide showed that the people in flow have creative spikes upwards of 600%. These are massively disruptive numbers. And I think right now in our world, we need conscious disruption. And these numbers, I believe, underlie what is going on. This is conjecture on my end, but underlie what is going on with the MAPS clinical trials. How is it? What is the mechanism that has 2/3 of people that have chronic PTSD that have been struggling with this condition for an average of 17 years? People that are the Western medical model have just written off completely. What is it that is having 2/3 of them completely shed their diagnosis? And that number goes up from 67% to 71% after a year, and it holds after 3.5 years. So they have a cure for PTSD. And it's my belief that it's this flow state, this massively leveled up learning, creativity, and productivity is what we use to reframe and get ourselves out of the personal hell of the mind, so we can reframe our challenges and to find the blessing that is in our challenges, to let go and to heal, and ultimately to do the work that we're here to do. So we have these very disruptive numbers that I believe underlie the peak experience. And a case example, a case in point, and another plug for microdosing. Ayelet Waldman, she wrote a book, A Really Good Day, How Microdosing Made a Mega Difference in My Mood, Marriage, and Life. She wrote the whole first draft of her book in 1 month. That's insane. And she was doing that because she was tapping into the flow state, and LSD allowed her to get into that flow state again, where we have elevated learning, creativity, and productivity. And there's a lot of work. The backstory around flow, Mihai Csikszentmihalyi, he was a University of Chicago professor in the late 90s who wrote a book called Flow, and kind of birthed this, was a big part of birthing this positive psychology, whereas our clinicians and psychologists were studying all this neurosis, but no one's studying, at that time, no one was studying like kindness and gratitude and flow states and happiness. And I believe the Dalai Lama came over in the 90s and was meeting with the top brass at these institutions. It's like, what the heck, you guys, can you spend some time? Let's focus on the good parts of the human experience instead of focusing on depression and disease and so on. So that again, the science is very profound. I want to tie this to psychedelia even further. There was a study, I believe, and I'm blanking as to whether it was done at Yale or it was done in Robin Carhart Harris's lab in London, but it showed that the brain similarities, they put people in an fMRI machine so they could see what's going on under the hood, so to speak. They had Olympic meditators that had a practice of 20 or 30 years. They showed their brains compared to people in a psychedelic state, compared to people in a flow state. And there was a lot of similarities. It shows that the prefrontal cortex, essentially the default mode network, which is in charge of our reflection, self-reflection, our daydreaming, ruminating about the past and the future, that goes offline. They call that transient hypofrontality. Again, they write about this in depth in the book Stealing Fire. And when I came across this work, it became very clear to me that all right, well, the psychedelic experience is incredible, it's sensational, it's meant so much to me on my healing journey and reframing my past hurts and the cathartic value of letting go of some of the hurts in my nervous system. But if that's the case, that there's that overlap of flow and meditation and psychedelia, for me it's been my mission is how do I bring more flow into my life, whether it's with psychedelics or not. So I think that to me is the goal. Jim Quick, he's a thought leader in this space. He doesn't talk much about psychedelics, but he talks about the power of the brain, and he makes the point that we've learned more about the human brain in the last 10 years than we've learned in the last 2,000 combined. So and things are moving, and they're moving very quickly, and it's an exciting time because essentially what we are is being retold in real time. What is possible? So that is very exciting, and psychedelics are a big part of it, because if we're going to get our shit together as a human family, we're going to need a lot of conscious disruption. We need to disrupt some of the systems that are broken and that are dying, and with the climate crisis, ecosystems dying, the state of our politics, social injustice, the wealth, the list goes on, and I think that psychedelics can help us to solve these problems, and flow, and meditation. That's a good place to stop. We'll open this up before our last talking point, which will be love and altruism and how to pay it forward.
I thought a lot about the Western equivalent of meditation being like cannabis, but I find you can get lost on the computer for hours and time just doesn't exist, and suddenly it's been 4 hours later. I wonder if there seems to be a lot of conscious design in the online experience to try and maintain your attention. In Las Vegas, Nevada, they used to study time on device. And if there are a lot of blinking lights and a lot of noise, you could get people lost in the act of pulling the one-armed bandit, and money got spent. And I think that that's been refined to an art so that You get online, and there are all these things saying over here, over there, and you know, you end up with a huge dump of your time without really experiencing time passing. I wonder if that's something that was, you know, designed.
Well, I think that the big tech's market cap of a year or two ago was $7.5 trillion. I'm sure that it's gone way up from that, and that is largely built on fracturing our attention. That's their model. So, you know, we're immersed. I wouldn't necessarily call that a flow state, because flow state is going to be something aligned with our values, something that is positive, that is bringing love and light into the world, but certainly capturing our attention. And you know, and tech does that, and it does that to us all. We all need to have what I call a digital minimalism philosophy. Cal Newport wrote a book called Digital Minimalism that meant so much to me, my path, and really quantifying what we're up against with tech.
Yeah.
So we can eat, because part of it is beautiful. The interconnectedness.
Yeah.
So we want to be able to nourish ourselves. We eat the shit out of the bait, but to not take their hook, because the hook is there and it's real, and they will drag you into the mud. And yeah, if we don't have a system.
Sunday thing, how you're taking that break.
Yeah, it's good. It's chill.
Yeah.
One day where I'm not.
And the meditation thing is for real, because like when my mom came and stayed with me for about a month, I'd stopped meditating and my life fell apart. It freaking fell apart. Like I got way sicker. Like, and so part of me being healthy is meditating. And there's something weird to the meditation thing. And I found this thing was like this old Dr. Monroe thing from the 60s, where it was all based, you know, that movie, The Men That Stare at Goats.
Mm-hmm.
He actually wrote the program for that movie, and he was one of the characters, and he was like the Jeff Bridges character in it. And like he worked at a broadcast center, like a CBS, and he started noticing that the people in the audience were doing different things with different frequencies. So they created a lab in the broadcast center and started playing with the frequencies, and then came up with this whole meditation thing.
Yeah.
And what he calls it's like a hemisync. And what he does is he plays two different frequencies in each side of your head. It's just similar. I mean, I go into meditation in like 3 minutes. And like where before I witnessed that, I always kind of wondered what meditation was, you know, because everyone tells you, and just like how she was asking, and you just kind of, there's millions of forms of meditation, and like until you find your own way, it's hard to get right. But I found this thing, and it's all based off of everyone else's meditation, whether it's current Buddha stuff or like the old past stuff. And it was like, it's Dr. Monroe, and it's the CIA tapes, and it's like it takes you on these exercises. There's like 21 of them, and it starts off with first building up your meditation state, that it teaches you how to build the energy thing around you to be protected, and it's just really interesting because it helped me meditate. Like for probably 20 years, I wondered what meditation was, you know, and I would kind of think I knew what it was, but until I watched that and listened to that. Like the first time I did it, and my buddy, I was like, dude, look what I found, and I gave it to him. He's like, bro, what the hell did you give me? Because within like, he's like, I fell asleep in like 2 minutes, but it teaches you how to fall asleep and keep your mind awake.
It's powerful.
So, yeah, so that was one thing that, so if anyone's looking for a meditation thing, they actually have a whole, his daughter picked it up, and they have a whole foundation. It's called the Monroe Institute. But those ones, they give you a couple free ones, but if you go back to like the Dr. Monroe CIA tapes, those are the good ones, because the actual government used that technology that he did to remote view. That's how they came up with the remote viewing for the Russians. They were training our people to remote view through his technology, because it's the same, like to remote view and meditate, it's all the same stuff. You know what I mean? So it's like it's these practices. And it's just amazing how your day changes, because it gives you the messages that you need to get you through the day. It's like what he's saying, like how he journals that stuff after. You're getting these messages, but you don't realize what you're supposed to do in life, because they're being filtered with so much garbage that it's hard to pick out what thought is the good one that you want to
Separate what's from the heart, what's from the fickle monkey mind.
And then the meditation hones it in. The meditation chases everything else out but what's real. And then you come out of that thing, and your day's a lot better. Like I notice if I don't do meditation, I'm a real angry person. That's why I have this colon cancer. Part of colon cancer is not releasing anger, not letting go, you know? So it's like if I don't do the meditation, like I'm angry. I get mad at like Trump and Biden gas prices, potholes in the ground, like anything. So it's like it's such an important thing to meditate. And I feel like when he's saying like that's going to change the whole world between like the veterans, because the veterans went through the war. So once the veterans say, hey dude, this is the reality of life. Like you guys weren't the ones doing this. We're the ones who had to deal with this, and we still had to deal with it. After the war is over, we're still here 30, 40 years later dealing with the psychology of the war. You didn't have to kill anyone. We had to do it. We had to witness people, my friend, people next to us dying.
And this is a perfect segue into the last talking point where we're going to talk in depth about the veteran, the potential within the hearts and minds of our veterans. Thank you for sharing.
Did you say the one book was Digital Minimalism?
Digital Minimalism by Cal Newport. Yeah, so this is our last talking point. We're going to tie everything together. Love and altruism. How do we pay it forward? This is a quote from Thich Nhat Hanh, Global Ambassador of Peace. He passed away a few weeks back at the age of 95. Veterans are the light at the tip of the candle, illuminating the way for the whole nation. If veterans can achieve awareness, transformation, understanding, and peace, they can share with the rest of society the realities of war, and they can teach us how to make peace with ourselves and each other so we never have to use violence to resolve conflicts again. That is the power quote that is the reason why I kick the covers off most days, and has instilled, my focus, my laser sharp focus on doing this work and healing our veterans. Let them push this edge. If they can heal and get right, it sends a powerful signal to all of us. And they can also show us how to do it responsibly, because they're people that we trust, we look up to. In this next time here, I'm gonna make the case and to share what I've learned about our veterans and why there is so much opportunity. A big part of the Worth the Fight messaging is the degree to which we lean in to the darkness, the pain, the adversity, the trauma, is the very same degree to which we can stand and share and love in our light. Our veterans, they know the darkness. They've been in it. They've been in a real life hell. They've experienced it. They've lost limbs. They've lost loved ones. And I think that one of the I look at them as an exponential solution. Just the idea that they are male, they're female, they're black, they're Hispanic, they're Latino, they're Indigenous American, they are Asian American, they are rich, they are poor, they're middle class. They represent all of the different religions that we have here in our country. They are us. So that idea when they heal, they get right, they're in their communities, they can share and pay this forward. They are all leadership trained, they know honor, they know integrity, they know discipline. They just need medicines that work. And they bring, and what I see is a big value to the psychedelic renaissance, is and our collective awakening, they bring that spirit of, they get shit done. They know how to get things done. They don't need to be told. When they go through an experience, they hit the ground running. They're like, cool, I had a vision, I'm gonna go execute. Instead of the kind of the waffling around back and forth, well, what am I supposed to do? And again, that comes from the leadership training. And I write about this in Worth the Fight, and I take big swipes at Bullshit Incorporated. And I think that, I spent a lot of time in contemplation and meditation wondering, how is it that we can sit on the sidelines while we have 22 veterans that die by their own hand every single day? That number's likely closer to 30 to 40. And then there's the opioid crisis and mess. And then there's the countless veterans that are stuck in self-abuse. And then I believe 10 to 15% of our homeless population are veterans. How can we sit on the sidelines? And I think a big part is that our veterans bring up very uncomfortable questions that don't have clear answers. So we don't really want to go near it. So we just kind of all right, I'm going to just be over here. I'm going to do things over here. They bring up the fact, and this is, I got this from the book Tribe. Sebastian Junger is the foremost expert in PTSD, homecoming, and belonging. He's got some very disturbing research that he came across in his work that showed that modern day veterans that fought in Iraq and Afghanistan, 2 times more likely to have experienced childhood sexual trauma in the early years of childhood development than those that fought at random in Vietnam. Mind you, I said report. Anybody that knows anything about male sexual shame, most men would rather bite a bullet than utter those words and to start getting into some of those deep emotions. So again, that was the number that drew me in, is that 90% of our veterans, it wasn't the PTSD, it's the childhood sexual trauma that is at root. I know from somebody who had childhood sexual trauma that it makes it very difficult in the teenage years to connect authentically with intimate partners, with family. You're disconnected, you're alienated, you're isolated. So yeah, go fight in war, go join the brotherhood, go find tribe in service time. And they get it, they have that. You know, war is, I'm not saying it's right or wrong, but they find that brotherhood. But then when they come back, they don't have the resiliency skills, they don't have the support systems, and again, we're just kind of, you know, they bring up some uncomfortable questions. So it's this systemic child sex abuse that I believe is perpetuated by the Catholic Church. Sam Harris says it best. If we had any Fortune 500 company that habitually employed sexually confused men, we would run them out of town so fast. But the church gets a blind eye in our society, and we just kind of turn the other way. It's messy, it's nasty, we're busy, we got shit done, we got bills to pay, and it's too big of a behemoth to confront. I call bullshit on that, and I think that you know, we will see a time when we get our hands around that and find a way to remedy that, because that is not. And Tim Ferriss had a podcast, and he was sharing his sexual abuse from the ages of 2 and 4. Tim Ferriss is a big mover in this space, and he talked about the fact that this sex abuse being universal. I don't think it's universal. I think these are maladaptive, man-made behaviors that were created to control people. And if we created it, we can uncreate it. And I think we will in the next few decades. The next bullshit incorporated offender is pharma and the pill-a-day model, which is very much on the chopping block right now. MDMA-assisted psychotherapy is in phase 3 clinical trials with our federal government. I just listened to a recent podcast with Rick Doblin, who's the CEO, executive director of MAPS. We're looking at Q4 2023 of MDMA-assisted psychotherapy being a legal approved cure for PTSD. So that is the domino that is going to tip all the others. And those are his words. He was on the Tim Ferriss podcast a few years back. And so good things are very close. And that pill-a-day model is on the chopping block. And it was a wonderful documentary, From Shock to Awe, that illuminates really the power within our veterans. They showcase 2 veteran families that kicked the war chest or the stock cabinets of pharmaceuticals and went the plant medicine route and the MDMA route. Very inspiring. Unfortunately, Matt Call, he was one of the veterans. He died of a freak accident last year. It was really sad. I highlight him in the last chapter of my book. Just that spirit of activism of, hey, let's heal our veterans. Let's have them get right. We have a strong democratic container. Let's infiltrate the government, the corporations, and do things in a democratic manner. Heal, get right, and lead and love by example. And lastly, the last of the bullshit Inc. offenders is our Western Addiction Recovery Complex. It's a $30 billion a year model, and that was some of the strongest programming that I had to move through, was the fact that it's a binary program that says that it's a 0 or 1. Either we're a out-of-control derelict addict, or we're a neurotic sober person, that there's no room in the middle, and it's total bullshit. And you know, and I see so often that people can harmonize their relationship with substances. It's not about the substance; it's about our relationship to that. And that is it. I'm wearing a Heroic Hearts Project shirt. I had an opportunity to represent them at their tent at Meatdelic, and there's a really neat shirt, so maybe this is a call to action if any of you are interested in supporting it. It's a pretty fun shirt. They have these in psilocybin, DMT, and it's a great way to move the conversation forward. So you can find this on the Heroic Hearts Project. It's super comfy shirt too. It's one of those like next level ones, and I feel really good and sporty wearing it. But that's it. Thank you so much for being here and for listening to my heart's plea for that better world that we all know is possible. I do have books that I had brought as well. They're for sale for $20, and I'm donating all the profits to facilitate psychedelic healing in our war veterans. And I also have a podcast as well. We're 85 episodes into the Worth the Fight podcast. Had a half dozen thought leaders on, and we're had Rick Doblin, Stephen Kotler, Dr. Dan Engel, Dr. Chris Ryan, and love the support. And I do also have space in my empowerment one-on-one coaching, and I'm hosting magic and microdosing group offerings as well. So please, come up and say hello if you'd like to find out more. And I'd love the support of the book. And again, thank you so much for being here and listening. Thank you.
All right, we're going to keep the ball rolling.
Awesome.